This is Mandatory Listening. I'm your host, Kent Mann. Each week, we sit down over a cup of coffee and discuss interesting topics in the world of the customer experience. Welcome back, Mandatory Listening. This is Kent Mann. Dan Mann, how are you?
Morning. Bright and shiny.
Bright and shiny, yeah. The look on your face says it all. It's bright, it's shiny, it's welcoming. I'm up and ready to attack the day.
Glad this is not a TV podcast.
Yeah, it is 8 a.m., and we've got quite a busy day today, so we had to get this one done early. We are both enjoying some coffee.
Morning. Coffee.
Yeah, morning coffee.
And afternoon coffee, I think, today.
Yeah, this is my second cup, so we're getting there. We're getting there. So hopefully you guys are enjoying yours as well, or waking up, or maybe going to sleep. Maybe this is the before bed podcast. I don't know.
Hey, Ken, I've got a question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
Whatever happened to Dane Cook?
You know, that's a good question. What did happen to Dane Cook?
In the eons of random, let's start with random right there. I watched Employee of the Month last night, which I would say it's my favorite Dane Cook movie, but now that I'm thinking about it, it may be the only Dane Cook movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to him?
Well, I think the same thing that happened to the other co-stars of the movie, Jessica Simpson and Dax Shepard. Nothing. Nothing happened to them.
I like that movie, though, man. I think it gets like a 6.5 or something on the whatever the ratings are out there, Rotten Tomatoes. But I always laugh when I watch that movie, but the guy never did anything else.
Never did anything. And there are some lines that we like to quote out of that movie, that's for sure. But what is it, 89 Honda? This is an 89 Honda. How dare you?
Well, it's got, is that leather? No. It's pleather. Way better.
Yeah. And a brand newish Chevy Malibu.
Yeah, we can go all day long. Those were sort of the early movies we got pretty excited about.
Yeah, you know, I actually saw Dane Cook on a podcast recently with Theo Vaughn, who's a comedian, and it looked like Dane Cook had aged about 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he looked a lot older. And, I don't really know what he's doing, but not so much in Hollywood anymore, I don't think. But anyway, this is not the Dane Cook podcast.
Okay,
as much as we'd like.
Dane, wherever you are, here's to you.
Yeah, well, cheers. The topic we wanted to come up with today was around the service department in a bike store. This came up recently because we were in Maryland doing some training, and our approach to the sales floor was the central part of the training, and mainly dealing with the salespeople. But we wrapped in service people into that, the people who are working on bikes, the mechanics. And so for the final installment for Bike Month, we decided it would be kind of fun to talk about the role of service people in making sales for a bike shop.
Well, in fact, it's the only part of this we can talk about, since while we have a dozen or so bikes out in our garage and we love riding, we're not really mechanical experts on the work of service. However, because we spend an awful lot of our time in bicycle retail, we know that as much as 20% of the bike business in specialty bike retail is the service side, the building of bikes, the repairing of bikes, the updating and maintenance of bikes. And so there's an awful lot of folks in the bike industry that are experts with their hands at repairing and working on bikes. So a lot of times those folks just don't see how sales or the customer side of this has anything to do with them.
Right.
But as you said, in Maryland, we ran across a lot of service guys and gals who were really intrigued by and involved in the customer side of the business.
Yeah, I was in one of the sessions in the morning doing some training, and I had 3 or 4 people, they were asking me questions, very involved and wanting to learn more, very leaned in. And all of them were service people. And so I was shocked by, because the stereotype is, and even in, I'm sure there's some degree of truth to this, where even the sales floor people, the customer facing side of this, are probably more mechanics than they are salespeople, because they just like bikes. They like working on bikes. And so they have that kind of left brain, analytical, engineering type mindset. And we've talked about this in our one-on-one trainings before, where trying to fix a brake on a bike or working on a bike and then having a customer, come up to the other side, tap you on the shoulder, be like, can you help me? And now you have to switch completely different parts of the brain from, I got to fix this problem, to Now I have to build rapport with you. And that dynamic is always a paradigm shift for people.
Well, the side of the thinking that makes bicycle mechanics so good is their commitment to precision and
Yeah.
accuracy and getting it right,
Right.
and and making sure it's perfect. That those perfection, precision, exactness, detail oriented ways of thinking. That's what makes those guys superhuman, really, in a lot of ways. But that's the opposite side of the brain from friendly, engaging, accommodating, relaxed, casual, no big deal,
Yep.
friendly, happy. And so, unfortunately, these folks get a bad rap for being unfriendly when really all they are is precise and exact
Or busy.
or busy.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Still, that in today's retail climate, that's
Everyone's doing
not
everything.
exactly, and that's not an excuse. Customers are expecting an engaging personality. Customers are expecting answers to their questions.
Yeah.
Customers are expecting for them to be important and to be made the priority when they're in the store.
Yeah, and when the rubber meets the road on a busy Saturday and you've got 3 people on the sales floor and then 2 mechanics in the back, I mean, odds are at some point of the day, one of those mechanics is going to have to work the floor.
So, if you're listening to this podcast today and you're not in the bike industry, you may be thinking, now, how does this relate to me? And I think really, if you're operating any sort of specialty retail business, there's a service side to your business somewhere,
Right.
and there is a sales side to your business somewhere. There's customer service, customer experience, and then there's conversion into sales.
Right.
So you may have to dig deep to figure out where to relate this. But just think about this from the perspective of the bike industry. Everyone on the sales floor, everyone in the business has a customer-facing side and has a responsibility to the customer experience.
Yeah, and can always improve their communication skills or something to do with the customer. And the example that comes to mind is the ability to. All right, so here's the stereotype would be you take your bike back to the service counter. They take the bike from you, put it on the rack, spend 10 minutes looking at it, going through everything, and then they hand you a bill. They slide the bill across the table, and you're like, I don't know what just happened, but now I'm having to pay $500. That's what we want to avoid. That's what pisses off customers more than anything, I think. And it's like a car mechanic. And that's where you lose your rapport with people. Okay, now tell me why you're adding $20 here. What did you do there? What are you doing with the brake? Why are you spinning? What's going on here? And I think just a little bit of forecasting in that sense goes miles. So what's the opportunity there?
Well, the opportunity is always when it comes to engaging with a customer, and you as the service person are the expert and the customer is not the expert, and I'm about to put a bill in front of you for $500, I must begin by earning trust. So the trust building piece of it is, yeah, I'm good at this. I'm an expert, but I'm also likable and I'm nice. I care about you and I'm interested.
Not going to take advantage of
Not
you.
going to take advantage of you. So it's a tough role for anyone in the service industry and anywhere along the spectrum of retail to both be good at the job, the credibility, and also the rapport piece of being friendly, nice, engaging, good listener, and caring deeply about how you feel about things. So that requires then that the service provider here, the mechanic in this instance, is telling the customer what they're doing as they go along.
Yeah.
Let me take your bike. I'm going to put it in the stand. I'm going to begin going through the gears. What I'm looking for is this certain sound, or I'm looking for this sort of behavior in the drivetrain. I'm checking the brakes. I'm checking the precision and the chain itself.
Yep.
And on and on and on. Here are the things I'm doing.
You're educating the customer as well.
And I'm bringing them into this experience so that together we can decide what we're going to do. And I think that when it comes to spending that kind of money or any kind of money on something I really don't understand, most of us would like to feel good about the purchase, that we're not being taken advantage of. And this quickly translates into the auto industry, where you go in and people are telling you that you're going to have this major overhaul that's going to cost $2,000 in your car. Since you're not a car mechanic, you just don't know.
Yeah.
You got to get a second opinion. You've got to do some research. I don't know whether I'm being taken advantage of. I mean, this is almost historically true.
Yeah.
And so the bike industry retail, the bike industry service department is not far removed from that same sort of experience.
Not at all. And it becomes a point where either you have a choice of, do I want my bike fixed or, my car fixed, or am I just going to let this go and not be taken advantage of? It's almost like you get to a point where you can't say no if they slide you the bill. It's like, well, yeah, you want to take this bike home today and have it work for you? Well, here's the bill. And you have no idea what just happened.
I think a little understanding goes a long way here.
For sure.
If I'm on the side of the mechanic who's the expert, who has spent years perfecting their craft, who has spent considerable time learning and studying and practicing and becoming skilled
Yep.
at these highly developed behaviors and the ability to do this very well, and not to mention the importance of diagnosing the problem in the first place,
Yeah.
and the exactness it takes to get it right. It can be tough to be patient with someone who doesn't know,
Yeah.
who's questioning them, or has a how dare you
Yeah.
sort of mindset, when I've spent my lifetime becoming an expert.
It's like, dude, you want to come back here and fix your own bike?
Yeah, you think you know
Yeah.
what you're doing?
Yeah.
Get over here and try it for 1 minute, because you'll
Yeah.
be lost.
Yeah.
So it can be very difficult to have that sort of patience
Absolutely.
on the customer side, from the mechanic side. But I will tell you that we're moving into a time where that's going to become really the highly evolved part of this.
Yeah.
The capacity to be great at the repair, to be great at the providing of the service, while also understanding the patience it takes and the sensitivity it takes and the trust building it takes for that customer to feel great about that purchase.
Yeah. This is anyone who's done a in-person training with Dan knows his chainsaw story. And so I just pictured, as you said that, the guy standing behind the steel counter, selling chainsaws, but he's also working on chainsaws. And so he's got the dirty, oily apron on, and you come up and say, I'm looking for a chainsaw. And then just that complimentary moment where he takes his, hardworking apron off, sets it aside, and walks around the counter in front of you and says, okay, let's get you a chainsaw today. And now he's willing to ask you those great questions and determine, out of these 10 chainsaws, which one do you need? And I think that key piece is that ownership shopkeeper mentality that we're all looking for, that authenticity piece of, I just do everything. I just take care of the customer. I don't care. I don't have a job description. It's just me keeping shop.
I have a very clear picture of this, and maybe I'm old school and like it, but I grew up in Bath, North Carolina, and back in those days, retail was all one word, and that retail was Swindell's General Store.
Mm-hmm.
And George Swindell, who owned that and ran it with his family, was the butcher, also the expert on hardware, also the guy that rang things out at the register, also was the one who fit you for your boots if you happened to buy work boots that day.
Yep.
Did all the ordering, all the buying, all
Fixes
the marketing.
the lights.
Yeah.
Sweeps the floors.
So I have this picture of him back there, and he's back there, butchering and cutting the meat that you're going to be serving. But if you had a question about boots, the apron came off, he wiped it, washed his hands, walked over and took care of you. So back to the hardware example, the great compliment was from the guy that was working on the chainsaw. He's got his hands deep into the repair of this chainsaw. He's busy.
Yep.
But I needed help buying something. He could have easily dismissed me and said, I can't get to you
Can
now.
you get someone
or
else?
just ignored me, which would have been the most frequent response.
Yeah.
Instead, he took his apron off.
Yep.
He stepped away from the service and said, I'm here to also provide a customer experience, information, make you feel good about this, help you find what you're looking for. I'll come back to my repair later.
Yep.
That actual moment of communicating, you're the most important thing that's happening in the store today, is probably going to be called for more and more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is becoming the differentiator, where that elite staff you have, because so many retail, especially retail, are understaffed, short-staffed, having trouble with retention. So having those 3 or 4 MVPs on your staff that can do everything and creating that mindset of accountability is, key moving forward. And I have two examples I wanted to go back to about the car shop with forecasting. One's a good example, one's a bad. So the first example is, I have a Toyota, and so I was going in for where they would rotate your tires and check your fluids and stuff like that.
10,000 mile.
Yep. And you go in and you check your car in, and then you go sit in the waiting room. And there was an older woman sitting across from me, and she was reading. So the person who had checked her in came over, he was very timid, and walked over and says, excuse me, Miss Johnson. I don't know what her last name was. Excuse me, Miss whatever. We went through your check, for you're under the Toyota Care Plan, and we noticed that actually we're going to have to do a little more work than we thought, and we're going to have to do this. So let me walk you out, and I'm going to show you what we were looking at. So it's going to be about this much. It's going to be a couple $100 to fix because it's not covered under the plan. And she obviously wasn't happy about that, but then went up and did that. So that was okay. I was like, okay, he could have done that a little better. And then the next time, it was, I think 5,000 miles later, I come in and do my service thing again. And now as I'm getting checked in, he's going over, okay, this is the 15,000 mile. This is what we cover. This is what's covered next. And this is what we're looking for, seeing how you're doing. And he said, well, I just want to let you know first, before we go into this, that around this time, especially with cars like yours, the alignment can sometimes be off, especially in the mountains. You're driving around windy roads, and so you can throw your alignment off. I just want to forecast to you that this is not covered under your Toyota Care Plan. And so if they have to, we may have to get that fixed for you today, because that can cause your wheels to start burning or wearing in a different pattern. And so that would be about $89 if that were to happen. And I'm like, okay, that's unfortunate, but I'm okay with that because you told me that it was coming. Sure enough, he said your alignment was out, so we did fix that, and that'll be $90. Slight difference there. Slight difference, but I think it totally relaxed me, and I kind of expected that it was coming because, it is mountain roads and I am turning hard sometimes. So I hope that example resonates with people. Just that slight amount of forecasting goes a long way. The first example wasn't bad. It wasn't, catastrophic, but there was an opportunity for them to improve.
Well, the difference is that the person who's the mechanic, who's the service expert in this situation, can have a real impatience with the public.
Right.
Why would you not think that your car's going to have an alignment problem? I mean, it's in the mountains.
Yep.
It's not new. Things wear out. What's wrong with you?
Yep.
Well, how would you think that you wouldn't need to pay for this? What do you think? We're just going to do this work for free? It can become an outrage, a sense of how dare you not understand this?
Especially in a dealership setting where there's 20 plus people all waiting in the service side trying to get their car fixed today. And they're all busy and they're all angry.
I've got no patience with you.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this mechanic has listened to the complaints 1,000 times, and it becomes sort of a negative, low-level view of the public that they don't quote get it.
Yeah.
What these folks just don't figure it out.
Yeah.
So what I appreciate about the second example was, here was a person who was patient. Here was a person who understood human nature. If this person doesn't see this coming, doesn't understand that this is an issue, I could have a negative reaction. And instead took ownership, and laid out for them, here's some possibilities for you. Want to make sure you understand it. And all that did was provide you with a little bit of a head start, or a bit of a runway to see it coming.
Yep.
So you go, well, okay, I expected it, and gave you time. Actually, while you were waiting on the service, you could have done some research,
Yep.
made a phone call, checked in, found out whether that was true or not.
Yep.
All to go have a perfectly acceptable checkout process where the $89 made sense to you.
Yeah.
So whether you're in the bike industry and you know exactly what we're talking about, or you're in the ski industry, you're in the run industry, you're in the outdoor industry, you're in electronics, you're in footwear, you're in apparel where there's a tailor shop associated with your business. There's some degree of service that comes along with your world of retail. I can tell you there's a person or people in your business who are responsible for providing a service to the product that you sell.
Yep.
And those people are very important to your overall experience. Their point of view, their level of patience, their capacity for engaging with customers is as important as your sales side.
Yep.
And in fact, given the need to keep that customer engaged with you for the long haul, they may be seen as more important than the sales side, because they're keeping that customer.
Yes.
They're not only keeping and retaining that customer's business, but they're making sure that customer's out there providing the one thing we all value, and that's user reviews.
Yeah.
And the people who are going online and saying, this is a great dealership, this is a great bike store, this is a fantastic ski shop, they take good care of me, that's what people care about. I bought from you, but I've read the reviews that tell me your service side is also very, very strong.
Yep.
That is becoming increasingly the lifeblood of the highest value of a business, is how the service folks take care of me after the sale.
Yeah, when there's no more pressure.
Yeah.
And the example is the example I thought of for the run industry would be the people who do the coaching for like marathon training. It's like that's like a service. The service is you bought the shoes and now let's put them to work. And so in the group training or the group runs or the even private training that some running stores do, it can be easy to get caught up in the you need to run this many miles this week and you need to be this, and it becomes very analytical and very coaching and not sensitive. And so that's where the opportunity is for the run industry to be a little more sensitive to people's time or schedule or whatever. And so that person is the service, the retention almost, because those marathon groups are the people who come in week over week, always buying nutrition, always getting new shoes re-upped every couple months or whatever. So they are the sustainability of the company.
Yep, they're the sustainability company. They are the service after the sale side of the business.
Exactly.
And it rounds out the business. In the bike industry, I think whatever is happening in the world of retail, and certainly the bike industry is going through some pretty significant change. The service side of the bike industry ensures that this business is going to remain important. This assures that specialty bike retail is going to remain strong.
Yep.
It assures that specialty bike retail is, again, a one-of-a-kind kind of retail that continues on. It's certainly going to be some consolidation.
Yep.
There's going to be some significant change. But as long as the service side of the bike industry remains important for maintenance, for repair, for updating, specialty bike retail has a significant advantage. But without doing this well, you'll be just like every other retailer that's struggling, trying to retain customers because customers have increasingly more options.
Yep.
It means it's even more important for you to provide that A-plus experience for customers. That's what customers are telling us these days. I've got options. I don't have to put up with bad service, bad experience, or a lack of trust in the people that I'm spending my money with.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the biggest core competencies of the bike store, the quote unquote bike store. So that was a good closing. I think that pretty much put a nice little bow on it.
Yeah, I have to go one more step though, and I'm just thinking about who's doing it well.
Oh yeah.
And certainly I could list a pretty significant number of specialty bike retailers that I think are doing a great job at this. Of course, we didn't really mention the store we're talking about in Maryland, but it's Race Pace Bikes
Yep.
in Baltimore, who do a phenomenal job with this service side of the business. I know you just spoke with Stuart from Roll. That's another store that's legendary for their service. We certainly have local shops here in Asheville that we really enjoy, Liberty Bikes and Motion Makers, which do a great job with service as well.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I know that I also am a big fan of Apple products, and so I kind of think that the Genius Bar at an Apple
Really?
store is sort of in that same venue of service after the sale and someone that can help me solve a problem. And I know you've got a cell phone, an iPhone that needs some service, and just getting to the service and getting them to take care of it is an increasing aggravation.
It is.
And just replacing it's not an option when they're $1,000 phone.
Yeah.
And so I think this is going to become something we're going to be talking about more and more that goes outside of the bike industry, but the bike industry has pioneered
Yep.
that other folks are going to have to take a look at how well our technicians and the folks that provide service interact with the sales side, interact with the customer side, and provide a valuable service. Because right now, I would say Apple's experience there is unfortunately still hit and miss.
I agree, and I think one of the frustrations is that you spend all this money and time with a phone, and for the people who spend a lot of time in a bike shop, their bike, they spend a lot of time riding their bike, the regulars. But if the frustration of getting your bike worked on outweighs the cost of just buying a new bike, I mean, I would say that the customer would shift into just, I don't want to deal with someone taking advantage of me or deal with these assholes at this bike store trying to fix my bike. So I'm just going to buy a cheaper alternative online, or I'm going to go for convenience. I'm going to go for whatever. I'm now missing out on performance because I didn't talk to someone because I'm not willing to go into the Apple store or the bike store anymore. Depending on the bike, of course, some people, a couple $100 for a bike is a lot of money. Other people, thousands of dollars for a bike. Same with the phone. Some people aren't willing to spend more than, they're going to update their phone every year, but it's that customer that you can easily burn. And then I'm not going to deal with this bike store anymore.
I'm not going to deal with this brand anymore.
Yeah.
And the list goes on and on. My retail experience is specific to a men's apparel.
Yeah.
And so having worked in men's clothing for a dozen years, you had salespeople, you had people that knew how to put outfits together in those days, shirts and ties and dress shoes and the right kind of suit. But it was all about the service. And for us, and this is how I really learned this business, selling is one side, but then we're providing alterations. We're providing lifetime care
Yeah.
for these products. And that's where you lost your customer or kept your customer.
Right.
The sale was just your first day. It was a first impression.
Yep.
You retained that customer in the service shop. You retained that customer by being good at measuring and cutting and fitting suits to the customer's exacting standards. You retained that customer by having a reliable product that you stood behind.
Which is extremely daunting. Like, you buy a suit and then like a couple months later, oh, I need to get this altered. I need to get this whatever. And that first trip, the customer is already so clenched up about what they're about to do, or bringing a bike to to get it worked on. They're already so clenched up that you have to absolutely knock it through the roof. Because if they leave your shop after picking up their bike or their suit or whatever, and they say that was so inconvenient, they're never going to do it again.
Well,
But if they say that was the easy, I cannot believe how easy that was. That I'm going to do, like, now it becomes, I'm just going to go find a reason for them to work on my bike.
exactly. This confirmed my purchase. I spent this money with these guys. I had heard they were good at this. Sure enough, they were great.
Yep.
It confirms what I thought. But here's the thing. You said if the experience is inconvenient or poor, I leave, I will never come back. I'll do something else too. I'm going to make sure with a vengeance that other people don't make this same mistake.
Yeah.
Now you've got an enemy out there working systematically against you
Yep.
to tell the world these people are bad, and I'm warning everyone.
Yeah.
It's
They
almost
had
like
my
they're-
bike for 3 weeks or 2 weeks, and that's just the horrible Yelp reviews no one wants.
Yeah, and that is just an equation that most of us in bike retail are not considering as powerfully as we should and
Yep.
could. This one's big,
Yep.
and becoming more and more important as time goes on.
I'm glad that we hit this for the end of Bike Month. It was an interesting topic to wrap our heads around as we were brainstorming. But the opportunity here for the specialty retail market is to look for the not so obvious opportunities to improve. Of course, you have a nice service department. You have all the parts you need. You've got a full staff that can work on bikes. They're, of course, qualified. The opportunity is to work on those people's soft skills, because they are the continuing lifeblood of your company. Especially, when you look at the margin of service, which is basically 100%. I mean, of course, everyone's paid differently in the service department, but basically the product of service is 100% margin. So take advantage of that opportunity to develop those people and make sure they're treating your customers right. At least watch them and make sure they're up to your standard of customer service.
Yep. I completely agree with you. And sort of wrapping up with this, you spend all this money as a business owner to market and bring in the customer, and spend money to on your sign, spend money on social media, spend money to communicate to the world, hey, come shop with us.
Yeah.
You bring them into your store, and if they end up with a bad experience at service, you've spent all that money to have them out there advocating for people not to shop with you.
Yep.
The cost of not doing this well is insurmountable.
Absolutely.
So it just really reiterates the importance of your service shop, the folks in the service department, the folks that are meeting your customers there and taking care of them, that not only just the technical skills to do the job, but also the people skills to be great with your customers. That's vital.
Absolutely. Find a reason to check out that part of your shop and make sure it's up to your standard. And if it's not, find a way to develop those people. Well, Dan, always a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Wish you could do it more often, but you are a very busy man. And those of us at the end of the podcast club always appreciate you listening, and send us your feedback or any questions you have. As always, see you next time. That's it for this episode. If you like what you hear, subscribe and leave a review on our iTunes channel. We'll see you next week.